Hey y'all, welcome to day one with my new Mustang, who I just brought home the previous day, and I decided to name him Kirby. I thought it suited him really well. I think he has a nice, friendly, goofy personality waiting to come out of his shell. And so I just went in there and I started to see if I could feed him some hay to begin to form some positive associations with human interaction. And he amazed me. He took the hay right out of my hands. It normally takes horses a lot longer to want to eat out of your hands, but I just wanted to see if he would be the type to willingly take hay, and fortunately he was. As far as temperament goes, he's one of the least scared Mustangs I've had, so if you're watching this video and you're thinking about getting your own Mustang, just bear in mind, he is definitely one of the easier Mustangs. A lot of Mustangs that are way harder than him, and I've had Mustangs that as soon as I enter the pen, they're running circles around me because they're so terrified to be near me. If you're new to this channel because you found me through Kirby's pickup video, welcome. I post Mustang training videos like this. I want to share a bit of a glimpse of what it's like into really training a Mustang. I share all of the reality, the less perfect moments. These videos are edited because I have to take down quite a bit of footage into a manageable length for y'all to sit down and watch. And so I cut out a lot of the releases and breaks that I give the horse, as well as some of the repetition. And I'll usually let y'all know in the voiceovers if I repeat something several times and just cut out all of the boring, mundane repetition. I find that oftentimes good horse training is boring because there's a lot of repetition and just making minor, small improvements for the horse, and a lot of giving the horse time to think and process on what was taught. If you're new to the idea of gentling Mustangs and wondering why this horse is not still in the wild, Mustangs are rounded up by the Bureau of Land Management because they are severely overpopulated, which damages the ecosystem and causes harm to the horses as they end up starving with nothing to eat in the wild. And they are adopted out to the public or Mustang trainers such as myself who gentle Mustangs, start them under saddle, and find good forever homes for them, because most people don't have the experience, the time, or the facilities it takes to gentle a Mustang, so trainers like me can help make them more accessible to people who want Mustangs. After giving Kirby a few bites of hay, I wanted to see if I could get him to reach out and touch the stick. I use the stick literally as an extension of my arm because eventually I want him to reach out and touch my hand, but because that's pretty scary for a Mustang to do at first, I use the stick because it keeps me farther away from him, which keeps me safe and helps him feel more safe and confident. We started running into a bit of a problem with Kirby stepping on his lead rope. If you didn't watch the previous video, Kirby had a halter put on in the chute at pickup. That's how he has a halter on even though he's unhandled. Kirby is only the second Mustang that I've had the halter put on. I wanted to try this method to see if I thought it would make his transition into domestic life a little quicker and smoother. I find that the sooner that Mustangs stop fearing you and they start realizing that domestic life is actually pretty sweet, the less stressful the whole experience can be for them. So you can see whenever he starts to angle his hindquarters a little bit in my direction, I push him forward and let him know that that's not the right answer, as that can be dangerous. Kirby trying to sabotage my video recording caught in 4K. This is where I'm going to cut out some repetition. We just did a lot of this. Kirby reaches out and touches the stick, I back away. I give him a break, then I come back, he reaches out and touches the stick, and I back away. Like I said, there's a lot of repetition, but eventually I reached out and put my hand out to see if he would touch my hand, and he was really brave, he did right away. You can see where we were having issues where he's doing the thing that I ask him to, which is move forward. Unfortunately, his lead rope is kind of punishing him for doing that. That is one of the issues that can happen with having a lead rope put on. And so I decided it was time to pick up the lead rope and do a little bit of halter training. I put a pretty light amount of pressure on him, just trying to see if I can get him a little off balance so he actually comes off the pressure of the halter and he can figure out how to follow that feel And so anytime I get a bit of a try from him, I give him a good release. What I never do is just try to pull him straight forward. That's going to end up with a pulling match, and the 1,000-pound animal is always going to win that one. So I try and get him to yield his head to the side a little bit, eventually get him to yield his shoulders to the side, to yield his hindquarters away from me, and that's how he starts to put the pieces together to learn leading. He gave me a really good shoulder yield there, and so I gave him a release, and then he started to turn around as I was releasing the pressure. He's trying really hard to figure out what he's supposed to do. He's just confused because none of this comes naturally to him. It's not like wild horses have to come off the pressure of a lead rope in the wild. So he got turned around. I was able to flip the rope behind him, and it worked out that he went into the corner and he already wanted to turn around anyway. So I was able to get him to turn back around. I find that starting with having the horse moving and then asking them to stop, yield their hindquarters, and yield their shoulders off the pressure of the halter is a really easy way for me to explain to the horse what they're supposed to do. I don't want to just sit there and pull on them. I want to actually train them by explaining and helping them figure out what I want them to do. And it's absolutely incredible to me how smart these animals can be and how quickly they can start to pick up on concepts that are completely foreign to them. Roman, Elisa's horse, was harassing my horse a little bit through the panels.
Roman's trying to sabotage me.
So here I made the mistake of asking him to stop when he's on the long side of the panels, which I don't think he was ready for yet. It makes more sense to ask him to stop in the corner where the other panel is already blocking his motion. So he was pulling on me a little bit because he's confused and he's panicking because of the pressure on his face, so that's completely understandable. He got turned around and he actually gave me a little rear in protest. The lead rope flipped around his head, and then the bottom of the halter actually got in his mouth, which I was quickly able to fix. But that's one of those things where I made the mistake of asking him for something a little too soon, and we might have avoided that reaction if I had asked him to stop in the corner a couple more times first. But that's horse training. Horses will teach you as much as you teach them. This was really nice. The way he came off the pressure of the halter there was absolutely perfect and what I was looking for. So we took a break from halter training and I went back to seeing if I could get him to touch the stick, this time without the pesky lead rope under his feet. We did some more of that, and then I wanted to see if I could get him to touch the stick with the rope hanging down. This would prepare him for touch on more of his face and eventually to be able to be haltered and unhaltered. The flies were bothering him quite a bit, which made for an obstacle, but I always gave him enough slack in the lead rope to snatch the flies away. I do have to be careful because the head bobbing can be a sign that they're one that wants to be a little bit defensive and might think about charging, striking, or something along those lines. And so he didn't do anything like that, but I am always on guard, and I don't want to stand directly in front of him in case he does something like that.
I know, mine's really bad too.
And if he wants to leave, I let him leave. You can see I loosen the lead rope, and then I asked him to come back because I don't want him to turn all the way away from me because that's an unsafe habit for him to pick up. And then I asked him to stop here in the corner where he's a little more comfortable, and I think that's because he has Roman behind him. This is how I can train with the halter and lead rope on while still not forcing anything from him. I'm not making him stand here and accept touch. He's allowed to leave if he gets scared. I'm just guiding him so that he doesn't turn completely away from me and get the lead rope behind him. But he's allowed to express if he feels overwhelmed and leave the situation, because that creates a much safer horse that feels like they can communicate with you when they're afraid, rather than turning defensive because they feel trapped. Well, yes, bolting off from somebody that's handling them is not an option. That's something he's going to have to learn. I think that the quiet way in which he decides to walk away and express that he's scared is acceptable in the moment because, again, he is a completely wild horse on day one. It's amazing that I can even touch him at all. He's one of the easier Mustangs I've ever had. So while I was rambling on about Mustang training, in between those last two clips, I went and got some fly ointment for Kirby's face because the flies were really bothering him. So here you see me putting it on him, and he's obviously reacting to the smell. He thinks it smells pretty funny. This is where I was using a little more pressure to get him to stand there, just so that I could get that fly ointment on him and get him feeling much better. And it honestly floored me, the difference that it made in Kirby. The minute he realized that the touch from my hand made him feel better, it made the flies go away, he completely melted and he became a different horse.
5, I think. And he's definitely not 3 because he was 3 when they were gathered, and they don't mistake yearlings for 3-year-olds. It's like your hand smells funny. I know it. I know it. Now just let me touch your whole body, and I can put this all over you. You're being pretty good. Good job. Does that feel better? Oh, that makes me happy.
I wanted to see if I could touch the side of his face and work my way up to tightening the halter. It had loosened since it had initially been put on, which did create some rubs on the side of his face, so I wanted to tighten it to make it more comfortable for him.
My horse is remarkably good considering I just started touching his face 2 seconds ago, and now I can touch all over it with the ointment. He's like, oh, thank you. That's so much better. You know, he is bigger than I thought he was, Ellen. Yeah. I mean, like his withers are up to my chin. They look little when they're skinny. Yeah. I mean, like, I saw him and I was like, oh, cool, we got yearlings. I have a 3-year-old.
All of our horses came underweight because they made such a long drive to get here. Kirby was actually the best looking one. Elisa's horse is by far the skinniest one that we got, and Megan, who is also Elisa's working student, got another pretty skinny horse. That's also who you hear training her horse in the adjacent round pen to the pen that my horse is in.
Face and fly ointment like 5 minutes after I touched him the first time. Mine's a little more defensive of his body. This one is just a little testy about his nose, and I just want to put that flat halter on his face so bad.
It's so much fun training Mustangs together because when you're giving your horse a release, you can watch the other horses do things. Kirby started to really like forehead rubs, and that kind of became his comfort zone. That became where I came back to if I made him nervous. I moved my hand back to his forehead because he really appreciated that. Every Mustang has their side that they protect a little bit more than the other side. Some horses protect it a lot more. Kirby was mostly pretty even, but he was a bit more defensive of his right side, and that's just because he was nervous about me touching him because he didn't know if I was going to hurt him yet. And so he was blocking me a little bit with his head. He was also trying to get at the fly that was on his barrel, but he was definitely protecting that side a bit more. And so I wanted to make sure to work both sides evenly so we could start to even that out. So this is where I cut out some more repetition of just the same thing again and again, making very small improvements. What I really wanted to do before ending our day was tighten the halter so that it wouldn't be loose and rubbing on his face anymore. And he was a bit sensitive about it, which is completely understandable. So I went back to using the stick and string and just using the string all over his face to get him comfortable with ropes moving around on his face. This is the first preparation that I do before unhaltering and haltering them. This also helps prepare him for touch on his neck and further down his body for when I start to use my hand there. This way, when I go to touch him with my hand there, he's already prepared for that feeling a little bit, and he's less protective. As you can see, he's not turning his head into me and trying to block me quite as much. He still does get a little bit nervous and protective about it, but it's only his first day having any sort of training. And then it's just the same thing on the other side, just working on building up trust so that I can tighten that halter.
No, I tried to give him a handful of hay, and he's like, you can like touch me, but I'm not gonna take that. Yeah.
And in case you're wondering, this is what a lot of my time spent between clips looks like. He was making a lot of slow, steady progress, getting more comfortable with touch further on his neck. By now I felt confident that I could tighten the halter, and so I started loosening the knot.
I'm obviously forcing him to spend time with me right now. You're literally sweating. Don't bite my face. This is funny. Ah! No!
It took a minute for me to actually get the knot loose, but once I did, I was able to tighten the halter pretty quick. I then walked away to get some more fly ointment for his face, put that on him, and unclipped the lead rope to call it a day. I was hanging out watching Megan train her horse, and then I wanted to see if Kirby would let me walk up and start petting him at liberty, and he did. And we hung out for a little bit. He was really good and brave, and I made probably a stupid decision, which was to kiss his nose.
No, my hardest Mustang took 3 days to get the first cut. Well, she wasn't my hardest.
Kirby was being really cute while we were hanging out talking about Mustangs, and the mare I was referring to was Evie, who was the first Mustang I tried to do a YouTube series on, but she wasn't actually my hardest Mustang. She was just my second Mustang, so I was still learning how to do everything. All in all, it was an extremely successful first day with Kirby. I was really happy with him. He's definitely one of the easier Mustangs I've done and one of the bravest. I really like this Twin Peaks herd a lot for this exact reason. Well, thank y'all so much for watching, and stay tuned for future videos of Kirby. I have some really interesting content I'm really excited to share with y'all.
Who's that horse?
And here's the ponies all tucked away for the night with their nets stuffed full of alfalfa so they can pack those pounds back on.